Hello, welcome to one of my live streams. This is a Comic Tropes live stream. I guess that's a good name for it. And every day this month of October 2019, I am partaking in the Inktober challenge, which is just to draw something in ink every single day. Today's prompt was pattern, and I've opted to rough out a sketch here of Freddy Krueger because he has a sweater, which made me think of pattern. So I think that will suffice. I think that works. And I also have a chat room open, so I'm happy to answer questions, whatever I can, while I'm streaming. So hello to Robert, Jesus, and Beowulf. YouTube actually notified me. Good, yeah. Well, remember not only to hit subscribe, but to hit that bell icon to get notified of stuff like this. So let me get started. I picked up some new pens today, so hopefully I have a nice, smooth inking experience tonight. And I'm excited to see what kind of questions we get, what we talk about tonight. Have you read the new John Carpenter Joker? No, I guess I don't know what that is. Sorry. John Carpenter Joker? Did he, analyze the movie or something? Anyway, how long do pens typically last? That's a good question, and they vary wildly from brand to brand. It seems like with these Sakura brand Pigmas, that I maybe get I'm trying to calculate things out. I might get about 20 pages with it. So basically, you illustrate one book and then you'd need a new pen, somewhere around there. My evening's going well. Thanks for joining us, David. Let's see. Ren says, "Oh, hi. I caught you Inktobering." I have a opening gag for the next episode. I haven't, given those up. I just didn't feel like I had any great ideas the last two episodes. And believe it or not, I actually don't want to force that. So, yeah. But I haven't given up. I just didn't have a good idea. So the last two episodes didn't have an opening gag, but the next one does. So I've already recorded it. I think it's funny. It seemed to make my fiance laugh. That's a good indicator because she's used to my sense of humor, so she's a tough audience sometimes. Yeah, and then I may glance behind me every once in a while because I've got the game on. Let's see. What's on the TV? Yeah, the Thursday night game. I'm from Boston, so I'm a Patriots fan. So I was watching the game. Apparently, I just learned this today, thanks to my dad. He was like, "Oh, you can watch the game because I don't have cable." He's like, "No, you can watch the game." I was like, "How?" He goes, "It's on Amazon Prime." I had no idea, so this is new to me. So, got the game on in the background. All right. Hello, Sheldon. Hello, Mobius. Slightly disappointed you didn't do something Uzumaki. Well, it was something I gave a little consideration to, but here's the thing. Junji Ito has such a unique style. I was really how do you interpret that into your own style? It's definitely a challenge, It was an idea that I considered, though. It's not a bad idea. Thanks for answering my Bumblebee wonderings a few minutes ago. Oh, that was you on Twitter? Yeah. Yeah, I liked Bumblebee. Silver Lights in August. What is your favorite fight scene in a superhero comic book movie? Mine is Spider-Man 2's train. That's way up there. That's one of my favorites too. Versus Doc Ock on the train. That was very well choreographed and easy to follow. For spectacle, I also really enjoyed Civil War's battle between Iron Man and Captain America's superheroes. So that was kind of fun. Maybe it's because in each of those you sort of know the characters very well, so you actually feel invested, and they both benefit from pretty clear storytelling, not like super rapid cuts all over the place. You know, you have a real sense of where everybody is, even though they're taking place on these sprawling areas. It's really important to always sort of know where your characters are in a good movie fight scene. Fun question. My evening's going well, Terry. Thanks for jumping in. The only sports I watched today was AEW. Gotcha. Hello, TARDIS Rider. Hello, Mr. Stupid and Wrong. Boy, I stuttered over that one. Let's see. Captain America's elevator fight scene. Yeah, that was a blast. I like a lot of the Captain America movies because they're a little more sort of grounded with their fight scenes. In general, for fight scenes, I really enjoy like martial arts, and I enjoy it when it's not like cut to hell, like edited really chaotic with the shaky camera and stuff. It was interesting in the first Jason Bourne movie when they had like all that shaky cam. That was an interesting technique once, and now it's really overused in my opinion, and makes it very hard to follow. It can give you like a feeling of like something intense, but it's hard to follow the actual action. Those Taken movies with Liam Neeson have so many cuts. There's a scene, and I think it's Taken 2, where he's like, Liam Neeson's character is running down an alley and he jumps over a fence. The scene is like about 7 seconds long, and it has about 22 cuts, and I'm not making any exaggerations. It's so chaotic. It's so over the top. You're like, come on. I really love stuff like the Gareth Evans, is it? Or Edwards? Oh, geez, I always confuse those two. The guy that did the Raid movies. Like, I thought the Raid movies like featured some really awesome long takes, like, really clear contrast between the characters and the background, so that it wasn't all like just super dark. The fight scene in the church in Kingsman was very good, I agree. Although, then I think that the director got a little too addicted to that idea of making everything look like it's all one take. So in this, I didn't care for the sequels action as much. I felt like it was just trying to emulate that one high, and you start looking for the hidden cuts, and you can start to spot them. Iron Fist did the same thing in every fight scene. They got a little better in season 2. I will say that they made some improvements, but overall, like, my biggest disappointment with Iron Fist was just that, like, the good fight choreography is a relatively inexpensive special effect. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot less than CG. So they could have given us a lot better, and it was very disappointing that they didn't seem to take the time, at least in season 1, to give us too much in terms of good fight scenes. The first scene in Black Panther in the theater, and thinking, if the whole movie is like this, I'm going to throw up. I liked Black Panther overall as a movie, but I was a little disappointed by the fight scenes, how CGI they were, because I know Ryan Coogler can film a great fight scene. If you've seen Creed has like an amazing round of boxing where the camera is moving all around them in the ring, but it does not cut. It's all like, or at least it doesn't seem like it is. If they hid some cuts, that they did it very well. And like Creed has some really fantastic fight choreography. So I know he can do well. Let's see, what sort of things am I hoping for with the Black Widow movie? I have to admit, I haven't given it too much thought yet, I guess just go ahead and dive deep into like lots of obscure Marvel villains and history and stuff, because there's plenty of stuff they haven't used. I mean, I know that Taskmaster and Red Guardian are going to be in it, so I'm like, yeah, just lean into that and give us like tons of comic book stuff that we haven't seen and that like you're otherwise probably not going to use, because they're not letting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. use plenty of interesting stuff. Like, can we get, like, for instance, the Zodiac Cartel, maybe? Like, that would be fun. Did you know that Neil Adams is doing another Batman miniseries? I did. It's, I flipped through it, and yikes. It looks like a lot more of the same as compared to, like, the one I already reviewed, Batman Odyssey. It looks like they just gave him carte blanche, and I don't blame DC for doing that if it sells, but it looked pretty weird and ridiculous, and of course it features all his favorite characters, but yeah, whatever. I don't think most of the Shield's seasons are based on anything in particular. Silverlights. Yeah, like I said earlier, Bourne Identity started the shaky cam, and you know what? The first time, not bad. I have nothing against it. It's a really intense feeling, but in general, I like to sort of see what's going on with action movies, and so yeah. Hello, Franco. Hello, Carson G. Is the Shield series worth watching if I haven't started it? That's a hard question, because I do feel like seasons 3 and 4 were both really, really good TV, but you sort of have to have watched what's gone on before for it to resonate as much. And season 1 is very, like, spotty. It has a few good episodes because, like, they were still sort of treating it like it was in the movie universe. So, like, you get, like, some appearances by movie characters, and it ties in pretty closely with Captain America Winter Soldier. Season 2 is a little rough. You get, like, Inhumans, which is cool, but you're sort of like, you know, it feels like it's getting more and more distant from the movies. And while they keep, like, sort of referencing the movies, like, it continues to sort of become more and more distant, and because nothing ties together, you know, it's all one-sided. But I did think seasons 3 and 4 were both pretty good, especially season 4. And then you start to like the characters, so you may want to watch more, but you know, it's not great TV. It's for when you're a big fan of Marvel, in my opinion. And I am, so I've enjoyed some of it, but yeah. I can't give it a strong recommend. I can't. I would die for early Fitzsimmons. They're a nice couple. They are. I think the second half of season 1 is great. Yeah, it is better in the second half, basically. As soon as, like, the stuff that happened in Winter Soldier takes place, it becomes a more interesting show. It's just, in those early seasons, you're sort of expecting it to have even more, like, movie characters. You're like, oh, is Hawkeye going to show up? You know, is Black Widow? No. No. What's the worst comic book TV adaptation? TV. That is The reason that one's a hard question to answer is because, like, if something's bad, I'll bail on it pretty quickly, so it doesn't really lodge itself in my memory. It's a really tough question to answer. I'll take a look at the questions in just a second. Just filling in a little bit of shadow here for some ideas I have. Let's see. Justice League live action show from the 90s. Well, that's true. That one was pretty abysmal. I feel like I mentioned it in a review. I'm pretty sure I did discuss how bad that was. I thought of at one point doing an actual episode about it, but it just isn't worth it. I think other people have already covered it, so it didn't seem worth it. But there is another couple of obscure sort of TV films based on various comic book characters that I am giving some serious thought to, reviewing as an episode. I enjoy doing stuff like that. I haven't done it much, but if you've ever watched my episode, where I review an X-Men Christmas episode or the Rambo Christmas episode, that's something I enjoy doing. What happened to the Inhumans series? They just got abandoned. It wasn't the worst cast, but you know what? They just had no budget, and it wasn't tying into the movies very well. It didn't even really bother to tie into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which could have been pretty cheap thing to have done that probably could have helped. But yeah. Problem was, it was just cheap. I wonder why the movie division abandoned it. Because they were going to make a big budget movie about it, and then they sort of changed their minds, and I don't know why, because I still think, if I compare Inhumans to Eternals, Inhumans I think is a better property than Eternals, but whatever. You can make a good or bad adaptation out of just about anything. It really depends on the talent involved behind the scenes and their take on the material. Hey Chris, I've been rewatching Angry Video Game Nerd old videos. It made me remember my teenage days. What do you think of those? I thought it aged pretty well, and recent videos are fun too. Yeah, personally, okay, so Mobius doesn't like it, but I'm a big fan of Angry Video Game Nerd. I even supported his movie, and I liked that movie. I thought it was really funny. I don't know, his style of humor works for me, and I think he's got very good production values. As far as an internet, what do you call it, like a YouTube series. It was around before YouTube, but any sort of online series. He has really good lighting and sound, and if he does costumes or effects, it's not it's big budget seamless, but it's effective. I definitely admire what he's done quite a bit, and I think his character is funny. Hello, Rednax. Marvel pushed hard for Inhumans because X-Men was locked away at Sony, and they still wanted a big mutant team. Once the reacquiring happened, there was no reason to push Inhumans anymore. I agree with you, Beowulf, except the timeline on that isn't quite right. Marvel gave up on the Inhumans as a movie property before they really knew anything about acquiring Fox. Marvel was definitely at one point giving a huge push to Inhumans to sort of be as important and popular as X-Men, but they gave up on the idea of doing it as a movie before they acquired or were even really in the process of acquiring X-Men and the other properties that Fox has. So, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, it's not crystal clear on why they decided to sort of abandon that idea. Yeah, the Inhumans show was bad. I only watched, I think, the first 2 episodes, and I decided to bail. I was like, okay, Marvel ain't flawless. And then I started to realize that even though I'd love for the TV and movie studio division to be united, they're not. And TV just does not get the same level of attention or funding that the films do. So, yeah, it's kind of disappointing because I love a lot of the characters that have gone to TV. I'm a big fan of Daredevil. I'm a big fan of Iron Fist. I think that, like, Runaways is a property that I really admire. And I'm not saying any of those are bad, but it's disappointing to me that they don't get to interact with the movie superheroes. Like, there's nothing I would enjoy more than getting to see Spider-Man and Daredevil interact. They're like a classic team, you know? So that kind of drives me nuts. The TV and movie studios are really not united, JoJo. What's happening is, for Disney Plus, the movie studios are actually doing those TV shows, not the TV division. So, like, the TV division is that like Jeff Leb is in control of. He's not overseeing things like, you know, Moon Knight and She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel and all that. The actors would be straight up too expensive. Yes, I agree that it would be too expensive to put Tom Holland in an episode of Daredevil. I don't think it would be too expensive to get Vincent D'Onofrio and, I'm forgetting the name of the actor that plays Daredevil, but to get them in a Spider-Man movie. I don't think that would be expensive. Charlie Cox. Thanks, Lapis. That would really be nice to me to get to see a classic team up like that. And now that, you know, Marvel's you know, contracts with guys like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. have expired, as is inevitable because it's you know, they're expensive actors to do as a movie. Wouldn't it be cool to be able to see other important Avengers that are more recent, like, say, Luke Cage, show up and take over the Avengers? I think that could be interesting. All right, just got a super chat, so arigato, Penguin. Penguin, that's good. Speaking of AVGN, do you have any memories of old comic book video games that stand out? Oh, yeah, I totally do. I got a Nintendo very late in its life cycle, and I didn't read anything like Nintendo Power, so I wasn't really reading reviews back then. There was no online, so I didn't know what was good or bad. All I knew was I liked comic books, so I would get a lot of the comic book video games, and many of them are not very good. I wish I'd known that then and instead just spent my money on good video games. Some of them were okay. You know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was, like, way too challenging, but it was still kind of fun. The Punisher game was kind of fun. I beat the Silver Surfer game, although apparently that's supposed to be a really tough one. That is one that I beat. I beat Wolverine, but, like, I definitely remember being so frustrated at the X-Men game, the first X-Men game by LJN. Oh, that one drove me nuts. And here's the thing. Because I wasn't reading reviews and I was young, I didn't know that, like, some video games are good and balanced and some video games are not very good. So I just thought, oh, I'm not good at video games. Like, because I could not get very far in that X-Men game, no matter how hard I tried. And I used to just think it was a product of me not being good at these games, like that I hadn't, like, gotten in early enough somehow or something, like, and my friends could probably beat it, but I couldn't. That was my logic. And then, like, when I grew up, I realized, like, oh, no, that was just a poorly made video game that was, you know, not beatable. Like, it was I mean, it was beatable on a technical level, but it was way too hard. It was way too hard. But I remember spending quite a bit of time just like banging my head against a wall, essentially trying desperately to get further in that game and like wondering why I was so bad at it. Well, the answer is I wasn't. It wasn't necessarily all me. Freedom Force, The Dark Knight Returns. Let's see. But that's me going back to the NES. What was the first superhero video game? Something on Atari or in television? Well, Atari definitely had a Spider-Man game that I remember playing. I think it had a Superman game. So probably it would have been like, you know, either Spider-Man or Superman. The Spider-Man game was like most games on the Atari, like you couldn't exactly win it. What you could do is just sort of keep playing and the levels would get harder and faster. So that sort of got annoying. You basically just had to wall crawl up a building. If your web line touched a window, you'd fall. If it touched a bad guy that popped out of the window, it would break. And you'd have to try to like stick it onto something really fast. And anyway, you had to get all the way up, and then you had to sort of like swing back and forth while the Green Goblin was like tossing bombs at you, and you have to defuse his bomb. It was really hard. It was really, really hard, but I liked it as a kid. All right, 21-14, Patriots up. Has anybody read the Injustice comics? I have not, but I've heard that some people really like them, and that's cool. Why does Spider-Man have armpit webs? Just because Steve Ditko has some interesting ideas about character design, but I've always kind of liked it. Just makes him really more unique. He's got such an iconic costume. For my money, Spider-Man probably has the best overall costume in all of comic books. I don't think anyone has really ever been able to quite beat how good that looks. Obviously, your mileage may vary. Are there any weird powers Spider-Man uses once and never again? It's an interesting question. I'm trying to think. He's had some weird... Well, you could say that he got organic webs briefly. It wasn't just once, but it was, all things considered, pretty short-lived in the comics. But yeah, he did get like sort of like bitten and died and like reborn and all of a sudden had organic webs. That was just, I guess, to sort of match the movies at the time. But that went away. It's about all I can think of off the top of my head. You know, he may have invented some gadgets here and there, but that's about it. That weird belt light thing. No, he used the belt light a lot throughout the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s. He doesn't use it too much now. But yeah, he's got a big bright light on his belt that he can use if he's like sort of putting a spotlight on someone or investigating a crime scene. Kind of like that. Because it's like, I was like, yeah, of course Peter could invent something like that. LGN video games are bad, according to Cinemassacre. In general, they're really bad. LJN, not LGM, it's LJN. Which Spider-Man movie do you like best? Ooh, which one do I like best? Probably still Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi. I think that's probably my favorite. But I really like Homecoming, and I really like Spider-Man 1 by Raimi. Didn't really care too much for the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Wanted to like him because it's like one of my favorite characters. And I like Andrew Garfield as an actor, but I didn't think he was quite right for Spider-Man. I felt like he was like just too cool. Wasn't nerdy enough. Oh, Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse. Because it's animated, I simply wasn't thinking in those terms. I was thinking live action. You know what? Into the Spider-Verse I loved. That was a really great movie. Maybe that's my favorite. Maybe that's my favorite, then Spider-Man 2, then Homecoming, then Spider-Man 1, something like that. It's hard to say. I feel like Garfield did Spidey well, but lacked as Peter. Yeah, I guess that's fair. He was also just too old. I mean, the dude was already like something like 30 playing an 18-year-old. It was kind of weird. At least, I don't know if he was quite 30, but it sure felt like it to me when I was watching it. I was like, this guy seems way too old for high school. Are you guys like mostly watching the game behind me instead of me? Admitted. Watching this tiny little box. Like the TV now. It's all blown out. I'm pretty sure the NFL won't come after me. Let's see. Long or short Batman ears? Not too long. So I guess if I have to choose, I'll go with short. But like, if they're as short as like sort of Adam West, that's too short almost. Hey, Gene. Are you watching the game too? Let's see. Where would you rank Spider-Man Far From Home? Probably just below Homecoming. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was a good movie. But I do think Homecoming was a little better. They did a great job with Mysterio. They did a good job evolving each of the characters, but I really enjoyed Michael Keaton really knocked it out of the park, making like Vulture, in my opinion, like apparently one of the best Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. I felt like I totally understood his motivation, and he was like ruthless and dangerous. He was great. He was great. Oh, thanks for the compliment, Zarkle. Let's see. And Yard says, speaking of Adam West, did you ever read Burt Ward's biography? I didn't. You can't believe I chose to draw while the game is on. Well, I have to draw at some point, and, you know, I can at least turn around and watch the game. It's not much I can do. You're watching me while watching the game. Did you ever hear about the Japanese Spider-Man TV show? Oh, yeah. Wait, somebody stole the robot and they had to reuse the footage? No, I never heard that part. That's interesting. What are your current favorite superhero artists? Asks Daniel. My favorite is David Finch, but I like detailed artwork, so I have many others. What's yours? Overall, maybe like Naoki Urasawa is probably my favorite. Trying to think of like, you know, what else is way up there. I also really like Sean Phillips for like, you know, it's sort of a gritty, realistic, grounded style with good shadows. Mike Mignola is way up there. Like some days he's my absolute favorite. I'm sort of stuttering my words tonight, sorry. I do that sometimes. Usually when I'm tired, but I don't feel too tired, so I guess I'm just making mistakes. New Blade of the Immortal anime series debuting today. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow. In Spider-Man 2, how come Doc Ock's jaw didn't break when he slugged him? I don't know. That's just the thing you have to like go with in the comics too, because Spider-Man is strong enough to lift a car, but somehow his punches on guys like, Punisher, Daredevil, Doctor Octopus, non-super powered people, even just like your common thugs. All I can say is I guess he knows how to control the power of his punches. Because you're right, like, he'd be liquefying people if he wasn't paying attention. I can't even imagine what, like, if someone had the strength to lift a car easily and they punched you, you'd just be jelly. No, I haven't seen The Dark Crystal on Netflix. You know, that I never watched that as a kid, so I guess I just don't know Dark Crystal very well. I mean, I'm aware of what it looks like. I'm aware Jim Henson made it, but I never saw it, so I never really got into it. So I didn't watch the new one. People seem to like it though, so Netflix does a lot of research in terms of what its audience wants. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no? In general, I'll say no, although I absolutely love pineapple, so if somebody else orders it, I'll eat it. But I never intentionally order pineapple on pizza. The mix of sweet and salty is or sweet and savory, whatever you want to call it, it's a little too intense for me in general. Just checking the score. Fourth quarter. All right. Wish we were up a little more. Thank you for the compliment, Sheldon. Who do you think would be a good comic horror movie show? Who do you think would be? Like what comic? What would be good? Adapting any of Junji Ito's stuff would probably be pretty effective. That could honestly be a TV show instead of like a movie series, because he's got so many cool short stories. What else would be good? Lock and Key, Harrow County. Most of it lends itself a little more towards TV than movies, I think, but you never know. Werewolf by Night? Maybe. Gonna switch to a thicker pen for this. Junji Ito had an anime and it was terrible, but I still think it could work, even if that whatever you're talking about didn't. It's too bad that somebody else didn't make it work, but I definitely think it could. Ito's style just doesn't lend itself to animation. Yeah, but and maybe for anime that's true, but live action, like if you're not trying to be beholden to the style and you're just following the stories, I think he's written some really creepy stories. That's one of the toughest things is like, when comic books get adapted into movies or TV, you might get a good costume adaptation, you might get good casting, you might even get like a pose or something that matches the panels, but you definitely lose the specific like artistic style that made that comic book work. You're following the story, but you lose what the specific artist brought to that tale, and I feel like that's always sort of a shame. Anyway, like Spider-Man in the movies may have like a pose or something that reminds you of either Ditko or Romita, or maybe even McFarlane. But him on screen doesn't necessarily like remind you of like, you know, your favorite Spider-Man artist. Like you watch a Batman movie and it's not like you see Frank Miller or David Mazzucchelli up there. They were going to remake American Werewolf in London, but there's no movement on it. Good. Batman Beyond comic had Barbara pregnant and possibly Bruce's baby, but she miscarries. Jeez, that's hardcore. Wow, yuck. I don't think Bruce should be with Barbara. There's too much of an age discrepancy in like a mentor-mentee relationship. I don't like that at all. That makes Bruce quite a creep. Adult Swim is doing Uzumaki. Oh, I haven't seen the trailer for that. I'll look it up later. Thanks, Peter. What's your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie? The first one. Definitely the first one. And after that, the third. The third is also really good. And then I happen to be a sucker for Freddy vs. Jason. I like that one a lot. Wes Craven's New Nightmare has some really interesting stuff in it. That's pretty effective. A lot of them have at least something interesting to them, but aren't always good movies, if that makes sense. They're still, like, interesting. Yeah, Dream Warriors, number 3. Evil Dead. My favorite Evil Dead is number 2. Really like that. People have asked, like, you know, what's my favorite horror franchise, and I think it's got to be Evil Dead. Nine minutes to go. What is your favorite Joker joke? Oh, sorry, I don't think I'd have memorized any of them. Although I always liked the line in The Killing Joke when he sort of tells his origin to Commissioner Gordon. And then he says, sometimes I remember it one way, sometimes it's another. If I'm going to have a history, I prefer it to be multiple choice. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but I always did like that. Because I like the Joker to sort of be an ambiguous, like, force of chaos. I really like that idea of, like, him being unknowable. I don't mind a story trying to explore his origin or who he is. I'm not against that. But I in general, I just sort of like that he's so fully formed. Is just like, you know, he reminds me of something like Michael Myers in at least the original Halloween, where he's the boogeyman. You know, he's supposedly human, but there might be just something a little bit more to him that we can't quite comprehend. Do you think DC is better now after Rebirth and the New 52, or that mid-2000s? I mean, the mid-2000s was when I was still, like, you know, in my prime superhero phase, so, like, I was really into a lot of what they were doing there. But they do have a lot of top-tier talent now, and I'm not as up-to-date as I used to be, so... you know, for nostalgia, I sort of lean towards the 2000s, but every time I read something currently, it's really strong. So I'll say in general things are getting better. Let's see, I got to my local comic shop and discovered that Batman Beyond has comics. Cool. I prefer Joker as a multiplicity of varying origins that are somehow all true at once. That's an interesting interpretation, Hunter. How much would the Pats pay to sign NFL Super Pro? I think NFL Super Pro would have to pay them an absolute fortune for them to take him. I don't think that they want him. I don't think anyone wants him. In my mind, NFL Super Pro is currently a homeless man in the Marvel universe, the Marvel comics. Nothing worked out for him. He's solving hobo crimes because he's still like heroic, and he's like, Jerry says that somebody stole his can of beans. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this. And he solves hobo crimes. His tools are no longer a superpowered suit. He has a screwdriver. And one semi-crisp dollar bill that he uses to bribe his informants. Those are his powers. When will they make a movie about US-1? Exactly. Geez, I wonder if Marvel still owns the rights to the civilian identity of NFL Super Pro, and if I legit could just not reference his NFL Super Pro days, legit just have him as a homeless superhero, but he only concerns himself with the crimes there on the street. Like somebody is stealing all the collectible cans from the other hobos. Like there's one homeless guy that's stealing all the cans, and he's gonna track them down. Wouldn't that be kind of a cool comic? And I wouldn't do it to make fun of the homeless. It would just be interesting to see if you could make a character that's just sort of down on his luck, trying to help the community, and the stakes basically of all his stories are really low. I wonder if you could do that. Marvel would never let me do it, but that would be awesome to set it in the Marvel universe, and he could just never really gets help from he bumps into Iron Man, and he's like, can I get some money? And Iron Man's just like, oh, I donate to I've got a soup kitchen set up, go there. Someone robbed Jimmy the Flea of his soiled blanket. Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna find that blanket for you no matter what. I used to be a superhero. He just tells people I teamed up with Spider-Man one time. I had my own arch enemy called Rewind, and people or Instant Replay, and people are like, sure you did. That's awesome, man. I had superpowers. That would be a cool 4-issue miniseries, right? Have you ever set up a booth at a convention to sell your art? Yeah, definitely. I've been at the Small Press Expo several times, Baltimore Comic-Con several times. Yeah, I've definitely had a table and sold some of my comics and my art and stuff like that. I just don't have time these days to take off and go to a convention, because I don't think I get that many people right now that are looking for my stuff. But yeah, I've done it several times before. It's work to stay there a whole weekend at a convention and set up and hawk your wares and engage people. But I've done pretty well. Every time I've gotten a table, I've made my money back and usually made a small profit just selling my comics. It's definitely something I think everybody should try once or twice. Can Combo Man guest star? Well, if they won't give me the rights to the civilian identity of NFL Super Pro, there we go. I'll get the civilian identity of Combo Man. I'm always too nervous to set up a booth. Oh, it's fun. Thoughts on Crisis on Infinite Earths? It was a blast at the time to see all these superheroes interacting at once. Trust me, nothing quite on that level had ever been done before. There were all these new characters from, like, the Charlton universe, things like that. It was great. It was awesome. All right. Apparently, I missed a touchdown while I was talking with everybody. So that's good. Patriots are up 28-14. All right. Will you color this? Should I? You tell me, Gene. Should I color it, or should I just do grays, or what? It's up to you, Gene. Since you're here, sister, is there anything you want me to try to draw during Inktober? If so, I'll try to do it. My sister's pretty talented artistically as well. She doesn't really draw that much like me, but she has a lot of talent with, like, crafts. She doesn't, like, do it, like, as a job, or have Etsy or anything, but she's been creating these beautiful glass and rock, what would I call them, like art pieces. She gets a hardwood frame, and she'll glue, like, sanded down sea glass or smooth rocks that she picks up at the beach and form things. All right, Gene says I have to put this in colors, so I will. You should set up an online store to sell your arts and crafts. Wait. Oh, you should both. Yeah, that's cool. Be real bad and give him a green sweater. Yeah, we grew up in a seaside town in Massachusetts, a little south of Boston, and they have some beautiful beaches in that town, so you can find some gorgeous stuff there to craft with, and it's nice. I definitely miss it. That's what home is to me, is living right next to the ocean for the most part. And it's very beautiful out here. It really is. In the Seattle area, we've got huge, gorgeous mountains and hills and trees, and I definitely have no complaints about how beautiful it is. It's just different. To me, what feels right is to be near the ocean. All the beaches here in Oregon are public property. Oregon has some really unique, beautiful beaches. Cannon Beach was fantastic. I really liked how unique and pretty that was. And it has, like, mists and like fog roll down off the nearby hills into the ocean. It's a gorgeous effect. Humongous rocks. If anybody's ever watched the movie Goonies, that was filmed in Astoria, Oregon, and Cannon Beach, and it's not too bad of a drive to get down there. It's really gorgeous and unique. It's really pretty. Are beaches there different than tropical beaches? Well, yeah. It's colder, and not as clear, but in the middle of summer, it's definitely very, like, totally comfortable enough to go, swimming. It's really popular. So it's not bad at all. But yeah, of course, in tropical areas, just stays generally warmer for a longer period of time. And being on the islands, like, usually there's less of a steep drop off into the ocean, so like the water is shallower for a longer period of time, and it can warm up faster. But yeah, there's some gorgeous beaches that are definitely fun to swim in. Swimming's awesome. Different fish attack you than other places. Just kidding, right? Thoughts on brute force? I totally remember brute force. Yeah, kind of forced. Brute force was about like some animals who'd been given like armor and intelligence, and they would like they became superheroes. It was a Marvel comic. Not so good. It didn't last long, as you can probably guess. More nutrients in the ocean for whales and fish, which make water not as clear. Yeah. Krueger's looking mean. Good. I want him to. Just feel like I need to define a few areas a little bit more. You know what? Probably the color actually can help in this case. So I'm going to not overly muddy it up with inks, and I'll just focus on trying to improve it once I color it. Color it. I'm glad they never did a crossover movie like Freddy Krueger meets Freddy Got Fingered. Yeah, that wouldn't be too good, I agree. Marvel has published comics about everything, true. Sounds like We 3. It is a little tiny bit similar to We 3, but more cartoony. Do a comic tropes about Marvel's weirdest titles. At some point, that's a good idea. Let's see. You're going to see The Lighthouse. Yeah, I'll probably see The Lighthouse. I really liked... isn't that the same director that did The Witch? Because I like The Witch. I want to say like something like Robert Eggers. The Witch was really good, so I'm curious to see The Lighthouse. Yeah, I know Marvel's Starline, and I got like a bag of like 100 random comics one Christmas, and they had things like an issue of Madballs, Alf, Muppet Babies, Thundercats that were all in, part of the Starline, which was basically Marvel's semi-short-lived attempt to make a line dedicated just to like kids' entertainment. Have you seen the Swamp Thing series on DC Universe? I do not subscribe to that. I just really don't have the budget, so I have not seen it. I heard good things about it. I think it's a shame that it, didn't work out funding-wise for them to continue. Black Phillip. Black Phillip is a really cool idea. I wonder what I could do for that for Inktober. I like that suggestion. All right, who suggested Black Phillip? Excuse me. Beowulf. Good suggestion. Did you see The Witch edited as a Wes Anderson movie? No, I didn't. What a catch! What a catch! What did I miss? What did I miss? Come on! Come back! Just adding some sort of tears and just dirtiness to Freddy's suit. I imagine he sort of has, for some reason, been cut across his chest here, and so he's got a few tatters and a few stains. Oh, look at that catch. Julian Edelman, yes? Yep. Oh, oh, he did a great job pulling it in. What a great adjustment there. Thanks for calling that out, Gene. I got to at least catch it in replay. That's awesome. I remember Sledgehammer. It was a parody of Dirty Harry. Yeah, I remember that. Face looks like Hamburger Helper, but at least my clothes are clean. Man, I've been back for a few days. Things are going really well here. I can't help but miss New York. I miss it so much. I had such a good time there. I'm still sort of buzzing over how much fun I had. I wish I could be back. Does anyone here live in Touchdown? Obviously, Gene, the game that you're watching is ahead of mine. I'm on a delay, so you just spoiled things for me. Oh, hi, you caught me catching a catch. What was... Did I do the thing where I was trying to punt kick a field goal for my NFL Super Pro episode? I think that was the one. And what I came to realize was really, really hard. I had to get up to something like only 20 yards away could I accomplish it. I just had no skill for it. It was a really fun challenge. I went to I just sort of snuck onto a local high school football field and just spent quite a long time trying to get it. I think that's one of the funnier, sort of unintentionally funnier. I mean, I knew I'd have trouble doing it, but I didn't know I'd have that much trouble doing it. I think that was a pretty funny moment. New York has a lot of good restaurants. Man, do they. And while it isn't specific to New York, we did go to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. We had just such a good dinner. We all had such a good time. And I can't help but I miss it so much. I wish I could be on vacation and travel all the time. If my channel took off, I'd still make the episodes, but I would be traveling all the time. I would be going to big cities all over the world. That's what I would do with my money and stuff and my time. I would just be making episodes internationally. $35.14 with 4 minutes to go. That makes me feel pretty good about how things will probably go. Don't want to get my hopes all the way up, but seems like things will be good tonight. That's a total bonus. Good drawing of Freddy Krueger, Chris. It looks almost finished. Yeah, I would say that it is close to being finished, but that what I'll do is I'll also color it, since that's what my sister said I had to do. So she's the boss. She's the boss. In fact, you know what? Gene, you now have moderator permission, so that if somebody says, super offensive things and just isn't in control, you have the ability now to kick them out. Don't worry, everybody here's really well behaved and stuff, so you shouldn't have to use it, but you're somebody I know I can trust, so I'm giving you that power. Don't feel obligated to be here for every show or anything like that, but you have that power. The Pats never win. I can see you'd be nervous. Yeah, I know. I have visited the Space Needle in Seattle a couple times, actually. It's even though it's touristy, it's quite fun. It's a beautiful view. It's a lot of fun. Basically, I went there once myself, before I moved out here. And now when I have people visit, that's often something that they're interested in doing, and I have no problem escorting them there. And I was like, yeah, we're going to have a great time. Let's do it. Alright. Let's see what colors I have here. Gene has powers. I need to find a good dark red for Freddy's sweater. I need a brown. I need some browns. So let's see what we got here. I think prawn combined with a warm gray would be pretty effective for a sweater. Light suntan might be good for skin. Need some browns for boots and clothes and stuff like that. And do I have a lighter brown? Doesn't look like it. I'll also keep this fruit pink because I can add that with a gray for his skin. Alright. Sweater weather. Here we go. Let's see. Yeah. This is a good base, and then I can darken it up with grays. But I think this will be an effective sweater color. And I'm not going to just color his whole thing. I'm going to put a green behind the blacked out stripes, and I think that'll help give it a little contrast, even if it's almost barely perceptible. I think it'll help. Have you read any of the X-Men books? Yeah, I loved what Hickman just did with House of X Powers of 10. That was phenomenal. That just wrapped up yesterday. Total new status quo for the X-Men. Cannot wait to see what they do with it. I'll probably only read Hickman's X-Men book moving forward, but I think he really set up something cool for everyone to play with. He created a great sandbox, keeping the characters that we love, but giving them a whole new sort of mission and path forward. Reset everything. Could be very, very cool. But for now, I love the House of X Powers of 10 series. Please regale us with embarrassing stories from when Chris was a kid. Probably embarrass her just as much, though. But today she sent me a picture of us as, pretty little kids. Parents went on a trip to Disneyland, and the clothes we're wearing are so dorky. They probably were a lot less dorky at the time, but they look so bad. I'm wearing a California Raisins shirt, something like a members only windbreaker over that, and then I've got sunglasses. which for some reason I've got croquis on so that like I won't lose them. Heaven forbid, right? So that was a pretty entertaining picture to see today. Hickman is a great writer. I'm glad to have met him 4 years ago and have him sign Avengers 1. That's great. He is really one of the best out there right now. Marvel was very smart to sign him up and to put him right onto X-Men. Yeah, very, very cool. I hope when Marvel reboots the X-Men, they don't give us more of like Magneto as the villain in every movie. I'm a little burned out on that. So I was glad to see Hickman reset some of that as well. Every single X-Men movie had Magneto in it. That's a bit much. You also purchased an Indiana Jones style hat that day. Oh man, did I really? I don't remember that. I did not know that I got myself a fedora. What, was I trying to be a nice guy? I was too young to grow a neck beard, but apparently I had a fedora at one point, folks. Have I read X-Men Grand Design by Ed Piskor? I have. It's really fun. It was a great stroll down memory lane and fun to see Ed's artistic interpretation of those characters. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great idea. Now Marvel has Tom Scioli doing Fantastic Four, essentially Fantastic Four Grand Design. I won't be surprised if they get like, more indie people to do this, like sort of like recap the entire history of some of their more popular older characters. Like I would be up for seeing a Spider-Man grand design by somebody. I think that could be pretty cool, to be honest. So it's like Ed inadvertently created like this whole new franchise for Marvel, like this grand design idea. I don't think that was quite his intent. Do you have any interest in covering the Deceased story? I don't know. I'm not reading it right now. I tend not to like read too much, especially in terms of like event stories within superheroes. So, what is it? Is it basically like Marvel Zombies but with DC's characters? Is it something along those lines? Is it an Elseworlds story, or is it like it looks like it's in the main continuity? I don't know. Did you go to DC headquarters when you were in New York City? Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure DC moved their headquarters to LA. I don't think that they're in New York anymore. But I did go there back in the day, somewhere around like maybe 2000. It was cool. Yeah, like I suspected, using a nice dark gray against this is really helping give it some more definition and helping it look a little dirtier. I like it. Sorry if that sounds egocentric when I'm like happy a decision is like paid off. I'm just sort of talking out loud for the most part. It's just nice to see something sort of pay off when you have an idea. It's an Elseworlds story. Okay. Why do you remove both caps using the Copics? It's because if you don't, it creates this weird sort of effect where the ink will all want to get sucked right out onto the page if you have the other end capped. If you have this, it like air passes through. Isn't that weird? But like, yeah, if you don't, like, you can sometimes, it not always, but sometimes you'll touch the Copic, and if I had this cap on, all of a sudden it'll just pull a ton of ink right onto the page and stain things. So, just obviously something you want to avoid whenever possible. So yeah, that's why. An actual reason. All the ink comes out. There's a preffer differential. Yeah, a bunch of people saying, you are way too hard on yourself on these streams. I don't think I am. I really don't. I think I'm trying to be honest with myself. You know, I want to be a better artist, and it's a long, tough road, and if I just sort of liked everything I was doing, I don't think I'd ever improve. I appreciate the support a lot. Trust me, that was very kind of you. But it is important to me to try to get better. Let's see what this brown does. I'm going to do it on a shoe first, and then if it works, like on the hat. Oh yeah, I think that's the right shade. That works. Let's just see. All right, 2-minute warning. Good, good. I like that. It's going to be a good night. And then after this, I'm planning on editing a video for my patrons of the footage and pictures that I took at New York Comic Con. So that'll be something fun to do tonight. Just in case like any of this brown can come through, just putting a little more brown in there. Alright, now I need to choose a good dark green. Is that wrong side? Yeah. It's a good dark green. I don't want to go too dark. I have a couple options. I guess I will go with the darkest green because I think that's the most realistic shade. Do I ever get to sleep? Yeah, but I'm intentionally giving up some of that sleep to sort of make sure that my YouTube channel has regular content. I really want to see if I can like push it to the point where I can do it full time. You know, it's not realistic right now, but maybe someday if I put out enough content and like a couple videos connect with a larger audience. We'll see. Sleep is for the weak. Improving is a bumpy road. Improving is a bumpy road. Am I a big fan of late 20th century horror movies? Late 20th century is in so the late, like what, like 1990s and stuff like that, you mean? Or do you mean late 19th century? Game's over. I won't ruin it for you. Yeah, you are ahead. You're ahead about 1 minute, Gene. That's so funny. But I think I can guess where this is going. Well, that's nice. That's awesome. 6-0. Not all of them pretty wins, but all that really matters at the end of the day is the standings, right? And keeping the players healthy. This is probably too subtle to pick up on this camera. Someday I'll be able to upgrade that stuff, but if you look at it in person, it does now all have a green tint, a green hue to it all, and I do think it makes it look better, so that's nice. I like seeing that. Has anyone seen the trailers for this upcoming movie, 1917? It's a World War I movie meant to look like it's all filmed in one take. So you're just spending like a solid 2 hours with the main character in the moment on the battlefield. And I think it looks really impressive and interesting. Yeah. Okay, yeah. A lot of people saying that they've seen it. The trailer, I mean. I have high hopes for that. and I like we're seeing more of World War One these days used in media, but I do feel like it's underrepresented in media. World War One compared to like World War Two gets tons and tons of media and interpretations, but World War One is a fascinating period in the world where all sorts of alliances came into play, and it was a really dark time, like kind of like representing humanity at its worst in some ways, obviously heroic in others, but like it's worse because it's like, you know, where chemical warfare was invented, and just death on a scale that we'd never encountered before. It's really interesting. It's not a found footage film. It's not a found footage. It's a movie, but it's a film, but it's just all in one take. It looks like it's a oneer. That's impressive to like get like long performances like that. It's very engaging. Yeah, World War One is more ambiguous. I agree with that. I agree with that. Any thoughts on the Shining sequel? Doesn't look that exciting to me, but a lot of my friends are pretty stoked for it, and I get it. It might be good. I'm not against it. It's a long time has passed to sort of make it. Well, I mean, what is it? Is it a movie sequel, or is it like, you know, just a book sequel? It looks like it's trying to, as much as possible, evoke imagery from the Stanley Kubrick movie, which it's just been a long time, and I don't think it'll be as sort of deep and introspective as a Kubrick movie, so that might be tonally kind of weird. Those are my very light concerns. It's not a huge concern. It has the set design of the Kubrick film, yeah, yeah. Worried about McGregor doing an American accent. I feel like he must have done that before, right? There's got to be a movie where he's done an American accent before. Well, he's also going to do one as Black Mask in that Harley Quinn movie, right? So let's hope he can do an American accent. I'm sure he can. More impressions tonight. More impressions. Okay. What's that mean? Oh, do more voice impressions, Gina's saying. Excuse me. Excuse me. Took me a minute there, Gene. Yeah, this is definitely the right tone that I want for his sort of dark, burned skin. Isn't he getting an Obi-Wan TV series on what you call it, like Disney Plus? I believe I heard that is happening, and I'm totally down with that. I think that Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan was the brightest spot within the prequels. I did not generally care for the prequels, but I did think that his performance as Obi-Wan was rock solid, and he managed to imbue his character with some actual sort of like, you know, growth and feeling and humor and humanity. I thought he did a great job, as well as making it feel like it was the same character that Sir Alec Guinness had played decades previously. So I think that he came out looking the best. You know, like Natalie Portman I do think is a good actress, but Padme's kind of a weird character in that movie. And yeah, not the best. But I thought that Ewan McGregor came through just fine. I don't even think Liam Neeson's very good in that first movie, and I don't think it's his fault. I don't think that there's like there's no character to Qui-Gon Jinn. He's just generically good. There's nothing to that. He's just good. Yeah, I didn't find him very interesting, but I did think anyway, that's my two cents. More than 2 cents. Just doing some sort of fine detail here, and then I'll look up and see what kind of questions are being asked. I'll be with y'all in just a moment. No, I think Liam Neeson can be a good actor. I mean, I think that, like, come on, what he did in Schindler's List, that was a very good performance. That was not generic. That was very interesting. And Darkman was pretty interesting. He played a pretty weird, off-kilter guy in that one. These are just movies that are popping into my head. You know, Rob Roy, he did an amazing job in Rob Roy. I think that, like, more recently, he's doing just a lot of sort of generic action stuff, and there's not as much to those roles. But no, when he wants to, I think he's quite a good, a talented actor, and has done some very good work in the past. Loved him in Crawl. Any advice for drawing a character from multiple angles? Box it out, like, you know, just like make the shapes, like, you know, torso is like, you know, some 3D what do you call it, like rectangles, and same thing with like rectangles for all of this, and then you can just sort of imagine pivoting it in your mind's eye. Yeah, Neeson's a good actor. He requires a good director. I think that's totally fair. I think that that's exactly right. Any good Zorro comics? Good question. I'm not aware of a great Zorro comic, so if anybody else is, chime in. It's a character that's been around for ages, and definitely a cool, interesting one, but yeah, I can't think of an awesome Zorro comic, I'm afraid. I'm going to use a warm gray here. Zorro versus Dracula, that's a good comic. All right. This isn't quite dark enough to make a significant difference. So I'm going to have to bump it up a couple. All right, here we go. How could Zorro versus Dracula not be good? Fair. Excuse me. I'm sure you're right. And I'll give the edge to Zorro there. The song I've had stuck in my head all day today, and I'm not quite sure why, is I Love You More by the Beatles. And it's just been, like, in my head all day. Like, I cannot stop thinking about it, even though I'd rather just sort of, like, not. I'm like, yep, good song. Time to move on. My brain won't let it go. Oh, brain. Modern day gay Zorro would be dope. Yeah. Zorro the Gay Blade. The first Antonio Banderas Zorro movie was great. Yeah, well, who was the director that did that one? That was, I want to say Martin Campbell. He did both GoldenEye and Casino Royale. He definitely has made some really good action movies in his time. The Song That Never Ends. No, I don't want to think about that. If I sing it out, Raul, like all of a sudden YouTube will demonetize me, so I can't sing it out. Isn't that frustrating? demonetized. Yeah, I don't want to get demonetized. Not that. Not that. I only have one episode that's partially demonetized. It's my episode about Wonder Woman. Because I talk about, like, and it's just like a fact, it's history. I talk about the fact that the writer was into bondage, and he uses bondage tropes within his Wonder Woman stories. It's a huge part of her character and the history. I feel like I approach it without being salacious, but not good enough for YouTube. They were like, no, this is not advertiser friendly. Okay, if you say so. And I have to admit that I've got some serious concerns about, is my channel going to survive in January? Because YouTube got fined by the FCC for advertising to child audiences in unscrupulous ways. They should have been more careful with where they allowed advertiser ads to be placed, because there are channels out there I don't know all of them, but there's something called Ryan's Toys, where a kid is given toys and he basically sort of reviews them. He says what he likes. Well, they were advertising their own toys and other toys to a specifically targeted kid audience, and you can't do that. So now, YouTube is coming back and they're overreaching. Now they're going to say any channel that advertises, that is aimed at kids, won't be able to have comments, won't be able to have their subscribers get notified, won't be able to advertise. They're saying that for... So, and they specifically sent us all out a letter saying, if you declare your content is aimed at kids, that's one thing. We'll also be using, tools to search out channels that have kid-friendly characters or content. That's so broad. I think that my channel is family-friendly. I don't do lots of swearing, but it is definitely not aimed at kids. I don't, just cover nothing but My Little Pony comics or early Archie comics. That's not what I do. I do some analysis of what an artist, be it a writer or illustrator or whatever, is doing, or little documentaries about the history of comics. So, in my opinion, what I do is not targeted at kids at all. That's never been my intent. But YouTube might say, well, you've got a lot of episodes about Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a kid's character in our opinion. So episodes about Spider-Man and Batman, stuff like that, that's kids content. They may, in January, demonetize me or make it so that you guys can't comment on videos. Make it so that you, as subscribers, may not even get alerted that I've put a new video up. It could be there if you search for it, but it won't be there to you won't get alerted. So, definitely a little nervous. I hope that YouTube doesn't overreach and target my channel. I don't believe that what I'm doing is aimed at kids, and I don't think that I advertise to kids at all. But YouTube might, because they might just say that, yeah, they might just say Superman is a kid's character, or Star Wars. I've done episodes about Star Wars. Star Wars is a kid's thing. They might say that. It's up to them. It's up to them. I think if they do, they'll shoot themselves in the foot. I think that would alienate a massive part of their audience, because there's lots of people out there. This isn't the 90s, or earlier. There are adults that comics, that collecting toys, that looking at video game stuff, and YouTube might just say, oh, well, we think that that's all kid-related content, so we're going to treat you. They're going to say that they're going to treat you guys like children. I don't like it. We'll see. I hope it doesn't get as bad as what I fear. Until then, I'll just continue to work as hard as possible, and hopefully, things go okay. But definitely a little nervous about all that. Hopefully you can understand why. I think it's freaking dumb that YouTube think their stuff is kids content when it's so much more. I think that there's a very big difference between, like, kid, like, stuff that wouldn't offend if a kid walked into the room versus this is aimed at kids. Like, that is not any, in my opinion, like, none of my episodes are for kids. None of them. If a kid saw it, I don't think that they'd, like, generally have any psychological trauma, but then again, maybe they would if they, like, I review stuff like just last week, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I don't think that, like, my review of it really is that traumatizing. Even, like, showing some of the violent panels, it goes by pretty fast, and I don't think it's that traumatizing in that context. But who knows? Who knows? I'm trying to look for, like, whether I sort of had a silver type of, I guess I don't, but let me, I've got some cool grays that I'm going to use. The Dick Tracy episode. Yeah, Dick Tracy used to be, like, a really violent comic. What's my day job? Selling cars. I sell cars. I'm a car salesman. And I've become pretty good at it, actually, which is cool. If I had unlimited time right now, what I would love to do, since I'm dealing with colors, is, like, sort of give a hazy, misty red background, like, something like a really bright red, like this lipstick red, and then go over it with some, like, grays. Because Freddy's always sort of in a boiler room type of setting, and I think that would look really cool. But I really don't have unlimited time. I try to keep this to about an hour, and tonight I've done more like a little over an hour and a half, which is totally fine. But, yeah. Favorite Elm Street sequel? 3, Dream Warriors. There needs to be a competitor to YouTube. That would be great, but, there's a million of them that try, and they fail. The thing is, you need a lot of bandwidth, and it's hard to grow something like that over time. YouTube had the benefit of basically being the first site like this, and they got to grow a lot slower. These days, if you want to compete with it, you have to grow fast, and it's hard to scale up that fast. It's really, really hard. So, we'll see. Who wins, Freddy or Jason? Jason. He just can't die. I think he'd just never give up. He'd be too stupid to. Isn't Twitch a good alternative? Possibly. Possibly. I think I can see people moving there, so it's a possibility. But anyway, I think that's the drawing for today. Let me see, if I put it at an angle, you can kind of see the whole thing, like that. That was a fun one. I'm pretty happy with this result, and thank you for all the kind comments and questions. I think we had a fun time today. Thanks, Gene. Yeah, good suggestion coloring it. I looked at it and I was like, yeah, there's not too many colors so this one would be a fun one to give a shot at. What's tomorrow's prompt? Usually there's Care Bear Comics is in the comment section and prompts me, but I remembered myself this time. Tomorrow is the 11th, and the prompt is snow. Snow. I've been going with a horror theme, but that one's going to be a challenge. I'm trying to think of... Well, there's Dead Snow. That's like zombies in the snow. What else? What else has to do with snow that's horror themed? I'd say The Shining, but I already did that. Oh no, I didn't. I didn't do The Shining. I did The Thing, didn't I? So I did The Thing, but there's The Shining. Snow Spiders, Game of Thrones. I don't quite remember those. White Walkers. Yeah, White Walkers. Jack Frost. No. not going to do that. Frozen. Frozen is a good horror movie. That's a really cool one. We're not talking about Elsa and Anna singing. There's a movie called Frozen, which is such a simple premise, and it's really terrifying. 3 people are on a ski lift, and they're the last ones, and somebody shuts it down. They don't realize that there's one more set of skiers up there, and the ski lift gets shut down, and everyone leaves for a long weekend. And now they're going to be trapped there for 3 freezing cold nights up in the air. That's a scary idea. 28 Days of Night. What's that Japanese horror movie in the snow? Oh, not sure. Not sure I know that one. Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yeah. A Wampa, Abominable Snowman. Alive. Yeah. It's just more of a true story. Let Me In. Let Me In. That's a good one. That's Let the Right One In is a good Scandinavian horror movie. The Ice Titan from Hercules. Anyway, good suggestions, all. I'm going to take off. I'm going to make myself some dinner and get to work on editing a special video for my Patreon subscribers, and then do some work on the next episode of the regular Comic Tropes. I think you'll all enjoy it, but thanks, everybody. I'm going to take off. Till next time, keep reading comics. Bye!